Yo, what is going on, guys? We've got episode 54 of many here. We've got another special guest, Holden Smith. Thank you for joining us.
Dude, thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
This is Holden's first podcast. Him and I go way back as far as freshman year. We played football together. We hung out a little bit in high school. By no means were we like best friends, but we always got along. Holden and I always had like little funny things to do in the hallway when we walked past each other. So we did have a good friendship back in high school. Since high school, we have connected several times. When we had the original Princeton facility, Holden, I actually have a video of Holden and I at the gym. So like when it was very beginning Princeton gym, 1,500 square feet, basically no equipment besides some squat racks and dumbbells and plyo boxes, right? Holden was working out with me. I was training him. So we go way back. He was kind of one of the OG workout partners there. And then, so that's kind of the intro here. Our goal today, why we have Holden on, is Holden and I, about 3 weeks ago or so, connected, talking about Holden's life and kind of what he's got going on. And we just kind of really dove into his health and kind of where we want to go with that. I've always cared about Holden. I've always wanted to work with Holden on this. So we are using this podcast episode as an accountability for him, for myself. We've been holding each other accountable. We've been messaging each other kind of daily, every other day, at least a couple times a week.
Absolutely.
Saying, hey man, how's it going? How's your workouts? Did you make it to the gym? Did you get your walk in? Right? Those are the conversations we're having now.
Yeah.
So I've mentioned Holden a couple times in previous podcasts as that I'm helping somebody close to me and I want to see them change their life. So again, we're using this platform as an accountability tool. We want to show Holden's journey. We want people that might be in Holden's shoes or similar to understand that it's possible and that we can do this. We want to kind of track all of Holden's progress. We want you guys to see it firsthand. So this will probably be kind of like a recurring series. We will have Holden on several times as we go through this over the next, this journey. And then, in a year from now, I want to have you on 2 years from now. And I want to show people that like it's paid off and that you've changed your life for the better. Right. So
absolutely.
Trying to speak this into existence. I want you to be full bought in, obviously, and that commitment. And I know that's one of the problems we have is, again, falling off and that stuff. So again, without further ado, we've got Holden here. We are going to kind of dive right into it. We're not going to talk past too much. We're going to talk about kind of currently. So before we get into what you used to do, let's talk about what we're currently doing, things that we've changed, and then we'll kind of work backwards. So since we've connected in the last 3 weeks, what are some things that you have been working on personally? Take that however you want. Just kind of tell everybody, what are it's been weeks 2 and 3. What are those first things we're really working on cleaning up now? And let's talk about that.
I'd say first thing was just like the diet. Like I would wake up in the morning, first thing, like it would be a soda, where it'd be like coffee with a ton of creamer, more creamer than the actual coffee. A whole bag of chips. It would be, some kind of candy, whatever. Just kind of not really caring about, what I was really intaking in my body. I was kind of in the mindset of like, well, if I just wash it down with, 44 ounces of water, it's really not going to matter, right? But since our meeting, I've made sure to get my steps in every day. Like you said, that 8,000 to 12,000 kind of mark is where I want to be. Best thing for me is, I got 2 dogs. One's 3, one's 2, and I take them on a walk and they love it. Getting those steps in, being consistent with no soda, no candy. The no caffeine is really tough because for a long time, I was just always about caffeine, and it really is an addiction, like when you really think about it. You sit here and like you start to think about like, man, like this sounds good. And then, you see the commercial and it's like, man, that looks good. People are talking about it. And, obviously, like when you're the bigger guy, people are always like, oh, well, like, hey, you want this or, you want that kind of thing, where it's easy enough, you can finish this, no problem, right, kind of thing, So just making those healthier decisions and just being more active every day is something that, it's just something that I have been doing, like being consistent, and the mornings are like the hardest part, when that alarm goes off and you're like, man, I'm really doing this. Yeah. That's, to me, like that's the hardest part. But I think, once you really kind of start getting everything going and, once you start moving, you get that confidence like, all right, well, you know what? I took an hour out of my day today to, be a better person and to better myself.
And we've been working a lot on your why. Like, what is our reason to do this? Like, why are you deciding now? Like, we've talked about it, but I want you to say kind of like, what is our goal? What are we looking out for in the future? Like, why that driving motivation other than Colton's texting you, telling you got to fucking do it? You
Sure.
know?
Yeah, absolutely.
What is your why? Why are we doing this?
I think my why for me is just, for a long time, like I kind of thought, with some of the things that I've been through, I just kind of thought that a lot of people like really didn't care about me, but it was just a lot of voided feelings that I never, really like comprehended and, I guess kind of allowed myself to be vulnerable and really, let people in and work on things. And I would just kind of emotional eat, or I would just, binge eat, shut down, or, kind of block everybody out. So I think like my why is now just kind of realizing like, when my niece, she'll be 6 in a couple weeks, and I'm realizing like, when I carry her, we go somewhere, it's like, man, I'm winded, like I'm sweating, right? And it makes me kind of think like, man, like if I want kids, like this is something I got to think about, when I end up, putting on a shirt, that I just bought a couple weeks ago, I'm like, oh, well, now my belly's kind of hanging out a bit, obviously it ain't the dryer, you know what I mean? So just those kind of things, I'd say like my why is just because I think I decided to really kind of start caring about, myself and what the future kind of looks like, because for a long time I thought, just kind of closed-minded, like, I don't want to say the mentality of I'm going to live forever, but just like that carelessness of I don't really care what happens, or I don't really care of, what goes on. But then, when you start to realize that you're, affecting other people as well, that's when you got to make those selfish decisions like for yourself to better yourself, so you can make others happy too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's great. I mean, I think, what we've really been talking about is longevity, right? Like how, if you continue on the path you've been on, what does that look like a year from now, 6 months from now?
Right.
How long is it until maybe you're in the hospital? Like, you know what I mean? Like how, and then something that I always like to bring up is like thinking about the other people around you too, the people that you care about. And if you don't care about yourself, then how does that affect, again, like Carly, for example, long term, right? Or like, whoever that counts on you in some way that you don't realize, So even in your niece, she's young, but like, where's Uncle Holden, right? Like, so I think those are like the strong. Obviously, you said all of that stuff, but cleaning it up, I think it's really about like that long term health and what I always say is without your health, you don't have a whole lot, right?
Sure.
So I'm extremely happy that you're making this decision. I know it's going to be hard, and I kind of want to get into that. What has been, so we're at about 3 weeks. Do you want to share weight wise what we started at, where we're at now in just like 3 weeks time? Because the reason I ask this too is not to put you on the spot, but other people who might be in your same boat. What were some of the questions you asked me at first? Is like, how fast?
Yeah.
How fast can I lose weight? Like, I want to see it. Like, I want instant gratification.
For sure.
Otherwise, you fall off. You're like, well, fuck, I've been doing this and now I'm not losing weight.
Man.
So I think it's important for people to realize, like, obviously everybody's results are going to vary. But when you're bigger, things can fall off faster. And if you stick to it and you're sticking to all of these things, I mean, like, if you're okay with it, I'd like people to hear like what you peaked at and already in 3 weeks where we're at.
Yeah. So like I said, as shameful as it is, when we had spoken a couple weeks ago, I had hopped on the scale and it was 483 pounds. And I weighed myself today before I came and I was 462, and that's just been eating clean, no soda, no candy, nothing after really 7 o'clock. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially, no sugar, no caffeine after that time. But just, being active every day, you know what I mean? Being up, being moving. And I think, to touch on what you said about falling off, I think, the reason why people kind of fall off is because, they don't see like those results physically right away in those first couple weeks. Like when I look in a mirror now, like I don't see that I've lost, like that 20 pounds. I feel like I still look the same.
Right.
But obviously the number on the scale is different. So I think that's the mental game, like where people kind of get fucked up and they're like, why should I, even try, why should I care?
Yeah.
Kind of thing, but, this 20 pounds, how do I not know in, 2 weeks if I put in just as much work, how do I not know that that's going to be 40 pounds,
right. Yeah.
And I think once you get the mindset down of, I can do this, when you get that little boost of confidence, whether it's from, a friend, a peer, family member, or even just yourself, like I think that's when you really start to be like, fuck man, I can do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the only person that can stop me is myself.
100%. I love that. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I always say too is like, I've watched over the last couple of years, and like every time I bumped into you, I'm like, oh man, I really want to help Holden change. But unfortunately, you can't help people change until they're ready to change.
Yeah.
And with our friendship, it wasn't necessarily, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe it wasn't necessarily my place, but I definitely could have said something. I could have tried to hold your hand earlier and said like, dude, I really want to help.
Sure.
And but yeah, unless the individual's ready to change, like it's hard, right? Like it's like you're stuck in your way, you're doing what you're doing, the 100%, carelessness. So
yeah.
I think now this is a different change for you. And now that we've got like this platform and our conversations and the things that we've been doing together, I think this is finally your time. I think this is like
Absolutely,
when you're going to change it and turn it around, and we're going to hold you accountable. And now we've got viewers that are going to hold you accountable too, which is even better. So
for real.
So what habits have we been working on? I know your work schedule's changing, so I assume you're going to have more of a normal sleep routine.
Yeah.
Have we? And then what have we've cut out junk food for the most part, I assume.
Yep.
Do you have vices? Have you still been snacking on stuff here and there, or what has that been like the last?
No, man,
2-3
I've
weeks?
been so like before I was, like I would allow myself like, okay, well, I'll have like a Tootsie Roll, you know what I mean, or something like.
Yeah.
It's been 4 days, right? But within that 3-week, 2-week span that, we were talking, but now, the last 3-4 days, like I haven't, like I'm slowly kind of weaning myself off of all that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been pretty clean the last couple of days, and definitely like, no fast food, like no greasy food, like, hey, I'm in a pinch, like I got to stop at Mickey D's here real quick kind of thing. From my old job, like, I would have a long day and I'd just be like, well, whatever. Like, I don't feel like cooking. I'm going to go through Mickey D's, or, I'm going to go through, Dairy Queen, like whatever. Right. It's just so easy to just, kind of grab and go food, but then like, you really got to break down, like, what's all in there, like the process behind it, like all those kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah. So just so like anybody else that might be in your position, we're 3 weeks in. So in the beginning, you might have been like not necessarily cheating, but slowly weaning off stuff. Like, I want them to know, like, did we go cold turkey, or did we keep, like, did you go through your pantry and throw everything out? Did you like, well, I'll save this and I'll kind of eat, you know what I mean? Like, what has that been like the first 3 weeks, so people understand how you've gone about it? And you can be honest. I don't need you to lie about it, but like, what, did we go cold turkey, or did you know what I mean? Have you had caffeine since? Like, I want them to.
No, I think at the start right away, like as corny as it is, man, but like what they say, like, like the first problem or like the first step, is admitting. And I think that's really kind of what it was, hopping on that scale, like, I'm admitting right there, that number, that's got to change. Right. So, after our conversation, like in my pantry, like it was just nothing but chips, candy, like you name it, right? And they were in there for a bit, because I was just like, I don't know, like how serious, I can really be. And then, I started like slowly taking those things out, one by one. And then now, like, it's just gone, because I don't want that temptation there.
Yeah.
So I'd say it was a mixture of both, it was a both of like cold turkey and like, starting to like kind of process. But I think for someone who wants to start off, I definitely think being strict is like the best kind of way to start, because, you don't want to give yourself that leeway of, oh, well, I just ran or walked, 2 miles on the tread or, outside. It's not going to make a big difference if I, crush a whole bag of Doritos or something like that. Me personally, like, I don't want that temptation there, because I know what it can lead to, and I think the self-control aspect, for me is something I'm still working on.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be around that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's what they say. The easiest way to like create new habits is find those bad ones and like out of sight. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
make them unattractive. Make sure they're not in vision, not in sight, and the less you know, So cool. So what? So we're going for a walk. We're going for several walks a day. We're going for one walk a day. What is
Yeah.
your?
I normally at least go for like one like big walk like throughout the day. You know, like I'll go from my house to at least over by like the Wild Rose like school district, you know, that kind of stuff, and then like I'll walk around like my block. I normally in my walk I try to get anywhere from 2 to like 5,000 steps in that one walk, and I'll go mostly like with my dogs. You know, and they love it. They just got to figure out kind of how to like coordinate walk together instead of getting those leashes tied up.
Sure.
But yeah, man, you know, I think that was kind of a big thing, you know, for me, that my dogs have a lot of energy. And anytime my guys say you know, you want to go for a walk, you know, they tilt their head and are like, hey, fuck yeah, dude, like, let's go, man, you know? So I give them that excitement, you know, because I think they deserve to, you know, be healthy with me too. And if you look up too, man, like, you know, best ways to lose weight, you know, let's say get a dog, you know, take a dog for a walk and stuff like that. But, you know, they don't tell you got to clean up shit and stuff like that too. But
what's your water intake been like prior and then now? Like, how has that changed?
So I would actually like always drink water because I would have such like dry mouth, right, from all the sugar, you know, and all like the crunchiness, you know, all the salt, all that kind of stuff. So I would always drink water. But now that I'm not, you know, intaking all that like junk and it's just water, I'd say I'm close to a gallon a day, if not more, you know. So it's an adjustment, man. You know, like I'm going to the bathroom like every couple hours, you know what I mean? But it's worth it in the long run, you know. And I think sometimes too, you know, like when you have that craving, you know, and you have that kind of like flavored water, you know, that does kind of give it a little bit of like substitute, which is nice. I've been drinking like some sparkling ice. It's like 0 sugar, 0 caffeine, you know, only like 5 calories. Those are pretty nice. And it doesn't even have like the carbonated water, you know, it's just more or less like watered down, which is kind of good for me.
Let's talk about cravings. I know it's a big one for you. So let's talk about what your worst cravings are, what they've been like, and maybe some things that you and I are working on together on how to substitute some of that stuff. And I'm sure there's still some more that we need to work on, but maybe we can find some here. Let's just talk about what cravings you've been having.
Yeah.
Any side effects, headaches, all that kind of stuff. Like, what do you got?
Headaches are a big one, you know, for sure. Like, you know, no caffeine, no sugar. That'll definitely make your head pound a little bit.
Do you know how much caffeine milligrams a day you were on average drinking?
Oh man, a lot. So like if I'm gonna be brutally honest, like it would be like a box of candy, you know what I mean? Like box of Gushers, right? Or like it'd be like 2-3 packs of Gushers, you know, a bag of Takis and like 3 or 4 sodas. You know, like I just didn't care.
Yeah.
You know, so whatever that equals up to is, you know, but I think, you know, the hardest reason of, you know, why I have the cravings, you know, is it essentially, you know, it is an addiction. You know what I mean? Like I've been eating so unclean and I've been doing these bad habits for so long, you know, and I think that's why people just kind of, you know, say that they fall off or, you know, they just stop, you know, because, you know, they're getting used to this. They don't want to get used to the new normal, you know, the new normal lifestyle. And nobody wants to work hard. You know what I mean? Like that shit sucks. It's exhausting.
It's not fun. It's hard, right?
You know, but nothing's going to get handed to you, you know? So I think for me, like the hardest part for cravings is, you know, I got a big sweet tooth, you know, so I got to chew gum or, you know, like I got to look at, you know, like I said, the sparkling ice, 0 sugar, you know, like that kind of stuff. You know, like I'll have like dried fruit, you know, like that's a huge one, you know, like when you haven't had any like actual candy for 3 days and you have some dried fruit, shit tastes like candy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like stuff like that. I think another thing too is, you know, like I was an emotional eater, you know, so like when I would get pissed or, you know, sad or something, I'd be like, damn, you know, like that sounds good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just kind of like didn't really have that portion control. You know what I mean? Like, what's another hamburger, you know, something like that. Right. So,
well, like what we were saying was, it's very like, food is like the best thing, like the flavor, everything you get from it. So what I recommended to you was to stay busy, right? Like, how do you occupy your time? Because I can overeat. Like, I can easily sit there and be like, what the hardest days for me to eat are Saturdays and Sundays, because what am I doing? I'm around the house.
Yeah.
I'm not on the road.
Bored
I'm not
eating.
occupied in the office. Yeah. I'm bored eating. I'm just like, well, I got nothing else to do. And I think I'm kind of hungry, right? Like your mind plays games. Your conscious says, well, I wouldn't mind some flavor if you're not going to use my brain for anything else. Like I might as well have some flavor, right? And some crunch and some chew. So, one of the things we're working on is just staying busy, staying occupied, keeping that mind, busy, so that way we're not. And again, when you're sitting at home, it's hard, but take your dogs for a walk, stay active, go sightseeing, whatever it is. Like we just need to work on that. So, and then recently we talked. I think literally just like 2 days ago was like, hey, dude, why don't you just try chewing on gum?
Yeah.
I personally I don't chew gum anymore because I don't like the sugar alcohols that come from it. But that's like a level advanced. I think for you, I think gum would be a fine one. Like it's a little bit of sugar. And again, I don't condone gum anymore or whatever, but like in your case and how far of a journey we have to go, unless you're under 200 pounds, I don't think it really matters for you right now. Like let's just work on like helping ease this transition. So chewing gum, maybe like breath mints or something like that, trying to find the healthier alternatives to those. Like when I needed some gum, I found like a healthy all natural gum on Amazon. I did some research. It's not as good as normal gum, but it still gives me something to chew on. So having a gum option in there to give you some flavor, give you some sugar, give you something that your mouth can be doing and not eating food is kind of my goal there.
Yeah.
And then the most recent one we thought of yesterday was, dude, why don't we just like get you on some protein shakes, right? Because I don't eat sugar really at all. Like, don't get me wrong. Once in a great while, like this past weekend, I had like mini Kit Kat, right? I'm like, dude, I haven't had sugar in so long. I just want to fucking taste it again, right? Like, I need it. I was kind of falling off. I was sick for a week, so I didn't work out. Last week, my workouts weren't normal. So I was just like, it was kind of like a fall off for me.
Yep.
Now I'm getting back on track this week. So we talked protein shakes, and I thought that was like a fantastic idea. Wild Society, actually, TJ Dillashaw, the UFC fighter, started a brand called Wild Society. I actually met him over at here in town at Actis at Milks.
Right,
and I like his stuff. And so he's got protein, which is good, but then he's also got flavored protein. So like you can get like lemon lime, you can get orange, and you can actually put it in like 30 ounces of water and shake it up for like one scoop. It's like 90 calories. It mixes well, and then it gives you a juice flavored protein.
Right on.
So you can get a couple different flavors of that. I mean, shit. For somebody like you, have 3-4 of those shakes a day, and when you're bored and you want to eat, or you're bored and you want some flavor, there's your option. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I think really structuring your meals, a breakfast, lunch, and a dinner, and then utilizing those shakes and that gum throughout the day to keep your brain occupied, keep your flavor, keep your palate. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's our goal there. I definitely recommend a new rule that I'm trying to follow is not eating 3 hours after you wake up and 2 hours before you go to bed.
Okay.
It's like it's one of the 5 rules. So once you wake up, you've got 3 hours of fasting and let your body kind of hang out and like use its storages, and then do not eat 2 hours prior to bed. The benefit there, when you do not eat 2 hours prior to bed, is your body has time to digest the food that it did eat, and it's not gonna. So what happens is if you eat too close to bed and then you go to sleep, your metabolism's working all night. Your resting heart rate is going to be higher than normal because your body's working to try to break that down. So after you start tracking stuff on the Whoop and stuff, which we're also talking about, there's a bunch of metrics that'll kind of get skewed, and for the worse, your sleep's going to be worse. You're not going to get as much deep sleep or REM sleep or whatever because your body's working on breaking that food down. So I personally stop eating about 4 or 5 p.m. and I don't go to bed till like 8:30. So I give myself like 3-4 hours.
Sure.
But a fair rule is 2 hours before you go to bed and 3 hours after you wake up is an ideal world. Now, you might have a job where you're not going to wake up at 4 a.m. So then you can go to work at 7 and then eat, like I get that. But just a rule of thumb, if we can live by that, that's a good one. What other things have you and I, kind of what I'm saying right now, what other things have I given you as like little tips and tricks that like we're going to be doing?
Consistency, that's a big thing. I think definitely too is, you touched on it earlier, is, holding each other accountable. Just because, I'm going through this transformation of weight loss, whatever, like doesn't mean you're not, working on your own goals. I have to hold you accountable as well. And I think, first off, I'm super grateful and I appreciate you for that, but I think, that teamwork in that aspect. I think us working together and holding each other like accountable, because I look at it like this, right? Like nobody likes to go, if you're somebody like me, you don't want to go to the gym, by yourself, even though everybody is there to better themselves. Like I still feel like, you're there, you're out of shape, or you're not doing what you used to do, so you always want to go with a friend or, like you always want to go with somebody that
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that's why, when it comes to like fitness and stuff like that, like, if you're able to do things on your own, like props to you, you know what I mean? But sometimes people need that extra, like, kind of kick in the ass like I do, so I think just us working together and just being like open and honest, with each other, I think that's just been like the huge like thing for us, like we're not here to be like, well, should we do this or should we do that? It's, hey, we're going to do this, or we're going to do this. And, these are, the numbers that, I'm putting down right now, stuff like that. So I think that's just a huge thing, for both of us.
What is our goal that we set? You came to me and said, hey, I want to walk X distance by this date. And what did I say?
Yeah. I said I wanted to walk, what was it, 6 months from now or something like that? Like I wanted to walk a mile without stopping. And you said, fuck that, you're going to do 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, fuck me. All right. I guess I'm going to do, 6 weeks. But I like the challenge though. You know what I mean? Because it's going to cause me to push myself, more because, man, like if you really think about that, like if it's really going to take me 6 months to walk a fucking mile, without stopping, like I feel like, you're right. Like I need to set more realistic goals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think maybe it should be walk, 5 miles without stopping kind of thing.
Yeah,
or something
right.
like that,
Yeah. You got to go big and urgent is important. So one other thing that I mentioned to you a lot, and I'm just talking out loud here, is the decisions you make today is a vote for your future self, right?
Yep.
So the decisions that you make today, your future self is either going to say thank you or fuck you, right? Like your future self is looking back at you today. Your future self is looking at us having this podcast and being like, dude, that was awesome. Like that changed my life. I've changed for the better. So 1 month from now, you walk a mile, you're going to go back and look at this and you know what I mean? Like, so anytime you message me, and you don't ever message me saying like, dude, I need some help. I really want to eat the bag of candy.
Right.
But you're like, we're talking about discipline and motivation and staying on track. And a lot of the times I'm like, dude, what would future Holden say? Like, think about that before you make a decision.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing for everybody to think about is, what I'm doing today, would my future self appreciate it or would they not appreciate it?
Exactly.
Everybody has their vice. I'm not saying you have to go stone cold sober. I'm not saying you can never eat sugar again. But maybe for like you, maybe you set a weight goal and say, hey, when I hit 400 pounds, Colton, I want you to take me out for ice cream because I haven't had ice cream in like a year.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I want ice cream, and if I had a reason for it,
for real.
maybe that would be our thing. And maybe you say I don't want to relapse, I don't want to fucking eat that because I'll, but you know what I mean. So, what is our goal? What weight do you think you want to hold yourself accountable to? And I'm not saying in a year, but like, what would be? Man, I haven't weighed this in so long. That would be awesome.
So I was doing some thinking today. I think I was thinking about this yesterday when I was on my walk. Like some goals that I have is like, I want to go to a Walmart or a Target, or Kohl's, wherever, and just be able to buy a shirt. Like I don't want to go to a DXL or, a big and tall section.
Yeah.
Like that's something I really miss. You know what I mean? And it's more expensive, to get bigger clothes.
Yeah.
It really is. So I think, that's something like I look at all the time, right? Like I'm like, dude, that shirt is so fucking cool. I'm like, oh, well, they only go up to 3X. Well, that sucks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So I think like that's a goal, for me is like, I just want to go into any store and buy a shirt and be like, all right, I can fit into it.
Yeah.
And I think too, my freshman year, I was probably like 280 pounds. And then up until my senior year, I was about 300, like 315. And then like after that, you know what I mean? Like I just didn't really kind of care.
Yeah. I remember when we were in Princeton, we got you on the scale and I think we might've been like 380 and got you down to like 360 or 350 again.
Yeah.
Like we were working on it.
Mm.
But yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to realistically, I'd like to be at 350 pounds by, April, right?
Yeah.
And I think that can be, or even May, I think that can be done sooner. And
well,
I'd like
we have
it
a
to
goal,
be done
right?
soon.
We've got a wedding or something that we've got to...
Yeah, just a wedding. Yeah, May 2nd, I'll be getting married. So I'd like to be that weight or less by then, and then that'll be 130 pounds, so.
And that'd be huge. I mean, the tux will probably be cheaper.
Dude, that guy is going to shit his pants when he's like, oh, well, might need to be resized here.
Yeah, that's awesome. So no, that's good. I'm trying to think of anything else that I want to make sure we get out there. Cause again, we're doing this podcast more of like an accountability aspect. I want to look back on this with you. I want people to be able to follow your journey, and I want people to be able to see exactly what's in the mind of like you.
Yeah.
And anybody else that's in your situation. I want them to be able to relate to this.
For sure. Yeah. I think, another goal I want to work on is just keep being consistent, right? I don't want to get down to 350 pounds and be like, well, fuck it. I'm going to go back to eating garbage. You know what I mean? I think I just need to, I think once I get down to a certain amount of weight, like you said, we can go out for that ice cream, or, I can have like, that one can of soda, right? But I think, those little rewards can happen, but I think it needs to be done in a self-control, kind of thing, right? Yeah. Where it's like, well, I had one, I got to have 11 more sodas, you know what I mean? Kind of thing. Right. So I definitely think, that's something, we can come up with, and even on later episodes be like, okay, well, we're going to reach this goal and do this.
I'd be willing to bet once you cancel out soda long enough that eventually you're going to go back to it and be like, wow, I don't really miss it anymore.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened to me too. I used to drink soda a lot when I was younger. And then Melindra's actually, being ripped, Melindra's, he's like, dude, you're never going to be ripped if you drink soda. So I stopped drinking soda like freshman year of high school. And then I've like tried to sip a Diet Pepsi since then. And I'm just like, yeah, this isn't really like, it really isn't all that great. Like I just don't need it anymore. So I think at a certain point, I don't know if sugar ever goes away. Like, is a Kit Kat ever go out of style? I don't think so.
I don't think so. No.
But
put that fucker in the freezer, man. Take that thing out. No.
Exactly. So but eventually I think, so being consistent is your first step. And I think the most important thing is being consistent in all aspects of your life. This isn't just showing up for you and losing weight. This is like, if you say something, you're going to do it. And it's like the mental toughness aspect. So if you say you're going to go for a walk in the morning, you better get up and go for the walk in the morning. But also financially, physically, nutrition wise, like it's about setting those standards for yourself. And once you start doing that, your mental toughness takes a whole different shape. And then when you get to that point when you could have that candy bar, you could have that ice cream, you might be like, I'm better than that, dude. Like right. I know that's not what I want. Like maybe a mouthful, maybe a spoonful, whatever. But eventually that mindset kicks in and you're like, dude, like that's not me anymore. I don't need it. Like look at me, look at future Holden. I'm 300 pounds now. Like I don't
exactly,
so I think that stuff starts to overtake. But it's the mental toughness. And I think that's the biggest thing you lack. Like if you had extreme mental toughness, I don't think you would have done what you've done. Right. You know what I mean? Like to say it straightforward.
100%. I agree with that, because, I think, to touch on what you just said, like, I think you're right. I think I probably would be kind of like, I don't need this, because I'm used to this new normal lifestyle of being healthy, being active, being, more physical, you know what I mean? Like making better decisions that, I'm not going to want to go back to that lifestyle. Not saying, like I said, I won't go to, some kind of like brewer game or something and have, a soda and a hot dog, or, something like that. Right. But it's not going to be an all the time kind of thing. Like I said, I would get off of work and I go straight to Quick Trip and get candy, soda, you know what I mean? And like, it was an everyday thing, and it was really like expensive, but I just didn't really care. That's why I feel like it was and is, like an addiction. You know?
No, 100%. It 100% is. So, no, I agree with you. What other stuff might we be leaving out, or what other stuff would you like to tell your future self and the audience? Like, what other topics or areas would you like to, any other goals that maybe you want to set, or,
man, just keep being honest. Keep being accountable. Show up. Do the work. Don't be afraid to, ask somebody like for some kind of guidance. Don't be afraid of that rejection. Nobody's going to hand you anything, some people do get handed stuff, but it always feels so much better, when you work for it, and like I've done some hard things in my life, but, I want this to be like something I can just conquer. You know what I mean? Like, I just want this. It's something I've been procrastinating for so long that it just needs to be done, like, and sometimes it really is just, getting on that scale, you know what I mean? Or something like that, where going on an airplane and being like, wow, I really can't fit in this chair, or, you know what I mean? Or like, I look at it like my fiance, Carly, like we went on a cruise, in March, and there was like one of the, excursions, and one of them was like zip lining. Well, they had like a 350-pound weight limit. Obviously, she can do that, but I can't, so it just makes me feel like just, guilty, and bad. Like, man, like I can't even have like this one special moment because I'm so out of shape.
Yeah.
Right. Or, like we'll walk on, the boat, or, go out to the beach and I'm winded, and I'm just like, hold on a minute, like I'm, then I start getting frustrated, at myself and all that kind of stuff. So I think as long as you can just be consistent, hold yourself accountable, and like just be honest and stay motivated, like you got to find something that does motivate you, whether it's a friend, a quote, some kind of video, something. Like you just got to stick with it. And I think, the biggest thing that I think about is what you said on, the future, like self, like my future self, come, May, or, next year or 2 years from now, for like the longest time, like I was just kind of living in the moment, like I don't really think, what's going to happen 6 months, a year, 2 years from now. But, when you kind of start to have like those wake up calls and like come to Jesus moments, I think that's when you're like, all right, maybe I should kind of start thinking about, the future. Because, 6 months from now, like I said, where I'd like to be, 6-9 months, whenever May is from now, I'd like to be at that 350 mark. When I'm there, like I'm gonna be just so like proud of myself, because like I did that, nobody else did.
And dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So I think that's just something, like you've got to come up with that scenario in your head and, like kind of like physically like picture yourself of what you could look like, stuff like that. It's tough, like I'll look at pictures where, like where, what you said, when I was weighing in at, 360, and I was like, man, I'm still fat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like now I think about me 360, like shit, I'd be like so happy to be there. You know what I mean? Oh. I could almost go ziplining. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. Like you look back, and I think that's why, what you said is so true. Like I don't knock you for not being like, hey man, I noticed you're putting on weight. You know what I mean? Like you got to do X, Y, and Z. Like, like you're right. Like it wasn't your place. Like you can take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it. Right. And that's an old saying, and it's, corny, but it's so true. Like you can't make me lose weight, only I can. You can tell me everything, and I could tell you to shove it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but it's just going to come down to me and my work.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that's just, consistency is key, 100%.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think that's a good way to kind of wrap it up. It's kind of a message back to yourself and also to anybody else in your shoes. So, anything else you want to?
Thanks for having me. I appreciate your time, and appreciate your guidance and all your help, man, for real.
Yeah,
appreciate
I'm happy you hopped on here. Like I said, I think in a couple weeks time, I'm gone the first like basically 2 weeks of September, but then probably right after that we'll connect and we'll do another episode or something like that. So
yeah, man,
middle to end of September we'll plan on hopping back on. My goal is to get as many people listening to your story as possible. I think it'll be good for you. I think it'll be good for kind of every aspect of this, but I want people to see your journey. I want people to like see you succeed. I want people to cheer you on too. Not that you need cheerleaders. This is a battle of yourself, but I want people to come and form a crowd. I want people to be like, oh my God, he's come so far. I listened to that first episode and now it's month 6 and he's down 80, whatever. Right. Like, so, I hope that you guys listening enjoy this. I hope you guys, if you're listening to the Spotify version or the Apple version, go over to the YouTube version, watch us interact, see Holden now so you can see Holden improve in his life and and next time you see him on camera and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I really appreciate having you on. I cannot wait to see you and your journey and your progress, and I'm going to continue messaging you and just checking in, and even if I annoy you, I don't care. Like, I want you to be better, you know? So
appreciate that, man.
And that's what, I'm doing it because I care about you, but the goal of the Grizzly Life podcast is to help people become 1% better. And so realizing it's one day at a time and winning the day and not the week and not the month. You just got to win today. Did you get your steps in today? Did you eat good today? We'll worry about those cravings tomorrow, right? Like, continue on that. Okay, I just got to win today, man. Like, Colton will be so proud of me. I'm going to be so proud of myself. So one day at a time, being the best version of you. That's what we're about here. And like, this is a perfect example of that. Is you just got to win today, man. Like, that's all we got to do. So, and something that I will add, and this is a prime example too, and then I'll stop. But when you're in school and you have a sport that you're proud of, football for Holden, myself, football and baseball, you have a team, you have a reason to be the best version of you. You have to have your ass in gear so you can support your team. You get out of school, you don't have things to work for. I fell off. I gained some weight. You know, COVID was a year where everybody drank and didn't do anything, right? Like, so it's easy to get in these cycles. And if you don't have a greater why, if you don't have a reason as to why you want to be the best version of you, it's easy to do what you've done, what I've done. I mean, like, it's easy to drink too much. It's easy to eat too much. I mean, it's comfortable. It's easy. And like, there's no repercussions today. So, I've brought this up in past episodes. Like, you need to have a reason. You need to have a why. You need to know, why am I doing what I'm doing? You've got a niece. You want to have kids. You want to be able to play with them when you're 50. Like, you want to be able to go on the zip line. Like, these are reasons why we're doing what we're doing. And it's just important to keep that in the front of your mind. You know, that vision board aspect. Put that on your phone. That's something we should probably talk about more, is like that vision board aspect, but always seeing that when you wake up, having a picture of it in your car somewhere, whatever. I think that's another powerful tool. So anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate you.
I hope you guys enjoy the journey. I hope you guys enjoy hearing Holden's story, and thank you guys for supporting the podcast. If you want to, we'll leave it there. I don't need to give any of my do you want any of your personal socials out there? Do you want anybody to add you? And
it's my Instagram is Holden_Thomas 1019. If you want to cheer me on or whatever,
I would like to add too. Holden asked in the beginning of the podcast, he goes, "Is it okay, like, if I swear?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude, man, I swear like a sailor." I swore a little bit more on this episode with him. Like, that's totally cool. But it's funny, he asked me, "Can I swear?" And then, like, I realized you were just wearing a Tupac shirt that he's just flipping me off anyways. So we got Tupac with two birds. And
he's fixing his eyebrows. Yeah. That's all he's doing.
Yeah. It's just funny. It's like, I didn't care if I cuss. And then, like, his, So anyways, thank you guys. We'll see you on the next episode.